Hi, I'm Luke Shepherd and I run Open Palm Tai Chi in Devon, in Exeter. We're doing Zoom sessions at the moment and I want to give you this little taster because what I've found is people are having really good questions concerning their posture and concerning their grounding, and I want to add something to that just to show you the way that I work, the way I look at the form. I've been training with Patrick Kelly, Wiki Jin in the Master Huang Shen style for 22 or 23 years. It's my best shot at it today. The feet, parallel, under the knees, shoulder width, one span between the center of the feet. The legs opened out as if there's a ball between the knees, so the knees are in alignment with the feet, rolling the feet onto the outside edge, the ball of the foot and the heel. So feels like I'm standing on a circle. Just get that connection. I want the knees to soften. The whole foot releases onto the ground to let the ankle press into the foot, and the knee feels like it's connecting into the feet in a buoyant way. You see, when the foot softens onto the ground, it changes its quality, and the whole weight of the body can then, with gravity, press into the foot and onto the ground. It makes a very light, buoyant connection. It's not held and solid. The muscles in the legs are changing and melting. When the knees are solid, solid doesn't mean stopped. It means pressed onto the ground. When the knees find that buoyancy, because just like the skin of the ball, the legs and the muscles in the legs are softening and receiving the weight of the body, the next part of the body to change are the thighs, the quad, the hip joints, the inguinal region, the lower back and the abdomen. I want to try and get the center to rest onto the knees. When the legs change, they melt. Just like a fist changes its quality, it doesn't move its position, it just melts and softens, and the weight of the body settles into the knees. The center feels buoyant and stable. One of the things I see with many of my students is they hold their weight off the ground. They move, but the leg isn't changing. So the muscles that were right for this position, when you move, they're not right for this position. The muscles in the leg need to be softening to receive the weight of the body. If the muscles are in this condition when I'm here, they need to be in a completely different condition when I move my body weight onto the leg. They want to be receiving the weight of the body. So the buoyancy of the hips are like a boat in water. When you put weight on a boat, put the cargo on, it moves on the water. It floats like a boat, floating my boat on the water, and the hips are just like that. The water of the legs, the soft buoyancy of the legs, the lower back relaxes. The tail drops. Doesn't come from tucking the tail under. For years, in my early days, tuck the tail under, keep the lower back straight. It happens because the legs soften, which creates space for the hips to find their level. The tail drops, turns under, which equally means that the pubic bone lifts because there's a rotation in the hips. The feeling is that the legs get nice and buoyant and pressed onto the ground. My base is very stable. When the hips change, what happens to the torso? Well, just like a tube of toothpaste being squeezed, when one part changes, the rest changes. And the classics say that when one part of the body changes, everything changes. So when the center drops into the legs, this bit needs to fill the empty space because this part of the body is going somewhere. There's room now for this part of the body to drop into it. So the whole chest cavity, the whole of the chest, drops into the pelvis. Now, one of the problems I find with a lot of students, and I fell into it myself for a long time, was that the classics talk about hollowing the chest. Now, I haven't actually seen it in the classics anywhere, but I've just read it in tons of books, hollow the chest. And the result of that is a softening in the front of the chest. Terrible posture, because we're thinking of softening the chest. Now, my interpretation of softening the chest isn't really softening the chest, hollowing the chest cavity. So the whole of the chest cavity, front, back, sides, is like a ball. Front, back, and sides. The chest cavity, like a ball, drops into the bowl of the pelvis. As a unit, it's hollow on the inside. It's not hollow at the front. It's a ball that's hollow on the inside, so it's full. It's got that buoyancy. Caved in ball, take the air out of a ball, it doesn't have that fullness. So I've got my base, I've got the chest relaxed onto the base. What about the shoulders? Well, if the shoulder's only connected in one place, so there's lots of room to move the shoulders. I see people softening the chest and dropping the arms hanging. Nothing's limp in Tai Chi, really. Nothing is limp in Tai Chi. This is just, we're not talking about relaxation, we're talking about getting rid of excess tension in the body. So when the chest is in position, the shoulders can drop. I'm going to use my ball again because the shoulder is loose. If this is the shoulder, this is the arm. When the shoulder drops, it falls off the ball and rotates. When my shoulder releases, it falls off the ball of the chest, down and outwards. And that creates movement in the elbow. So this position of one span from the body to the elbow is the correct position for the released shoulders. I'll come up close to the camera. This is collapsed. My arm's just hanging loose. You can see there's no space between the body and the arm. When I change my feet, I drop my knees, I let my body weight press into the base, and my center becomes stable. Then my upper body follows that movement, and there's a sinking of the torso and a rotation. As I soften the shoulders, they fall down and backwards, and the whole body, shoulders included, head top included, form buoyancy onto the ground. It isn't blocked, that isn't held, that isn't strong. I feel really light in my feet, but full and connected. I feel really light in the center, but full and connected. I feel my shoulders released and connected. And from the head top down, I feel buoyantly pressed onto the ground. To train this, I ask students to expand the distance between the navel or the dantian, 3 fingers below the navel, and the sternum. This distance, lift it up. Half an inch is enough. Just take the slack out of that bloody computer posture that is falling in and collapsing. Let's have some life and vitality in this part of the body. Also the back, let's lift the back a little bit so the torso is lifted up, the joints have a chance to be open. Then let's lift from the sternum to the back of the head. You don't want to be dropping the chin so much that the throat hurts, but just let the head rotate lightly so the crown of the head is plucked up. Now, if you do that, we bring the body into an alignment, but you can also feel there's tension in the body. That has caused some contraction of the muscles. So bring the mind inside the body. Let the muscles that you've used to lift, without changing your posture, without moving to a new posture, Just soften on the inside. The legs release, the abdomen releases, the shoulders release, and the body settles. Feel the body coming back into that buoyant, released, upright condition, everything falling away from the head top. And you get a connection between the feet and the head top. You haven't moved into a lower position. You haven't moved into a collapsed position. You've maintained your uprightness, but you've let gravity press you into a position, because on the inside, you've changed the condition. So you've got the position, you've got the posture, change the condition and let yourself blend with gravity and press onto the base. Now, if you can do this well, then any standing exercises that you do are going to be beneficial. But if you're just taking a standing position and holding it, and holding your muscles and using those large erector muscles to keep you off the ground for as long as you like, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, God, I'm doing good. You're just building up something else that we're not looking for. We're looking for a light, buoyant, fluid, pressed onto the ground, connected body. And we aim to keep that connection as we play the form. So all the different postures we go into, as we sink into the posture, we've got that buoyant, fluid, lightly pressed onto the ground condition. This is the first step in finding body posture, in finding body structure, and starting to work with the internal aspects of what's going on inside the body when I do my Tai Chi. Because you've got the external movements, which are the movements of the body through space. You've got the internal movements, nothing to do with Qi, nothing to do with internal energy. Of course it is, but we should think of internals as what can I actually control inside? All I can control are the muscles. Either they're tightening, they're releasing, they're stretching, or they're unstretching. That's all I've got control of on the inside. I can't make force happen in my body. I generate force by the muscles pressing into themselves, body moving and stretching the muscles and the muscles releasing. All that is done with muscle control on the inside of the body. The body has to have a framework. It has to be clear and it has to be alive. If you had a bow that was made out of rubber, it's not going to do the right thing. The bow needs to be alive and buoyant and stretchy. The structure of the body needs to be very, very clear so the soft muscles can stretch around the skeleton. This is where the forces are going to come from, and it's the training that starts to develop those soft internal forces, which makes Tai Chi very different from some of the external martial arts. I see people issuing, I see people throwing with contracted force, I see people throwing with acceleration, I see people throwing with pushing their center onto the ground. This isn't what my understanding is of issuing. My understanding of issuing is that a wave rises through the sinking body. The stretched muscles unstretch, body releases, and the wave passes through the fluid body. The push hardly feels like you're doing anything. You're not trying to generate the type of force that can throw someone's body weight. This would lead you up the wrong alleyway in your training. You're not trying to get strong, you're trying to get structured, fully released and connected. And then the issuing is a whole training in itself. And I'll do another video about that type of force when I can have a training partner here, which will be after this COVID time. So I hope that's some use towards looking at structure, some ideas for your training, to keep the principles, to keep the classical ideas of one part moves, the whole part moves, to keep the idea of how the center can become settled and fluid on the ground, how the upright posture can be used to your advantage, not held, not released, but somewhere in the middle that's alive and fluid. Thank you very much. Have a look at my website and join my Zoom classes, or I have an online program as well called Tai Chi, which you may find interesting. It's on my website. Thanks very much.